Good evening, everyone, and welcome to City Council meeting of St. Gabriel. Today's date is Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. I now call this regular meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. Well, a closed section report by City Attorney Keith.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, the City Council met in closed session to discuss the item identified as conference with labor negotiator involving the following employee organization, the San Gabriel Police Officers Association, the San Gabriel Police Management Group, the San Gabriel Firefighters Association, the San Gabriel Fire Management Group, and all unrepresented employees. After receiving a report from the negotiator, there was no reportable action at this time. The City Council did not meet regarding the second item, which was identified as conference with real property negotiators for the properties located at 257 and 320 South Mission Drive. That item is intended to be placed on a subsequent agenda at the end of August. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes the report.
Thank you so much, Keith. Next, I guess that's the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight is led by Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor. Please, everybody rise, place your right hand over your heart and face the flag. Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may see it now. Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Liao,
Here.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Yeah.
Councilmember Harrington,
Here.
Councilmember Menchaca,
Here.
Councilmember Pu.
Here.
Thank you. And we will start with some announcements from our Chief City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's meeting is live streamed on cable channel 3 and our online platforms. Please email all public comments to cityclerk@sgch.org no later than the time the item is considered by the council tonight. Comments will be read for up to 3 minutes each. Comments received after the end of the public comment section will be forwarded to the City Council after the meeting. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive City Council agendas, please email your request to cityclerk@sgch.org.
Thank you. And next item is approval of agenda order. There any objection to the agenda order? Hearing none, the agenda order is approved. And we don't need to vote on that. Next item, please.
Presentation A, Proclamation for National Mosquito Control Awareness Week. Mayor Liao will make the presentation.
Thank you. So a proclamation, National Mosquito Control Awareness Week. Whereas the American Mosquito Control Association is dedicated to preserving the public's health and well-being through the use of safe, environmentally sound mosquito control program since 1935. And whereas the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District follows an integrated vector management approach that prioritizes the mosquito control methods by the most environmentally conscious and sustainable means. And whereas the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health concluded that Los Angeles County accounted for 41% of the state of California with 9 virus cases and 17% of the cases in the United States of America since in 2020. And whereas excess numbers of mosquitoes decreases standards of living, diminish enjoyment of the outdoors, public parks and playgrounds, hinder outdoor work, and reduce property values. And whereas the threat of Aedes mosquitoes in our community increases the risk of a local outbreak of dengue fever, Zika, yellow fever, and chikungunya. And whereas the city of St. Gabriel, in cooperation with the St. Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District, has been involved in protecting public health from mosquito-borne illness. And now, therefore, I, Chinho Liao, Mayor of the City of St. Gabriel, on behalf of Vice Mayor Tony Dean and Council Member John Harrington, Denise Menchaca, and Jason Hu, do hereby proclaim the week of June 20th through June 26th, 2021 as National Mosquito Control Awareness Week, and urge the citizens of St. Gabriel to join me in this special observance. And dated July 20th, 2021. Thank you. And I think our St. Gabriel City Council member Menchaca also attending or part of this St. Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control Board. So you have comments about this?
Yes, Mayor. First of all, thank you so much for putting the proclamation on the agenda. I wanted to remind everyone, thanks to my council colleagues, I was elected to be the representative for the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. And simply, we want every city to be made aware of the fact that there's year-round issues with mosquitoes and the diseases they spread. This is nothing new. It's kind of like the flu. Every year, there is a lot of analysis, a lot of work that's being done. If you have any questions regarding this, you can go to sgvmosquito.org. But I do have some good news that this year so far, there's been no detection of West Nile virus activity. Unlike other cities, they have had some activity. We had none in 2019. We did have some in 2020, but so far this year, we have no detection. And also wanted to let you know that this proclamation will be also shared on the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District's social media, just to let everyone know that San Gabriel is keeping a watchful eye. Well, I also wanted to share information that the team would like everyone to do their part, to continue to do their part. Make sure you tip out all the stagnant water, because that's where mosquitoes love to hide and populate. Toss unused containers and protect yourselves with repellents. So thank you so much for bringing this awareness to our community. And that's all I had to say, Mayor.
Thank you, thank you. I just have a question. You know, for the past 25 years, LA County always offer mosquito fish, and it's free to residents. And these fish can, you know, eat a lot of us and small mosquitoes, and they really work. I was wondering, is this program still exist in LA County?
We have not discussed the program at all, so I will find out and let you know.
Thank you, thank you. I think that would help, you know, and some of the residents have small pond or, you know, any water sitting around all year long. It's a place to create a problem for mosquitoes, but it is a good thing that we used to have, and I hope that they will bring back the program. Yeah, I hope. But anyway, thank you for your work.
You muted yourself, Mayor. You're muted.
Sorry. So the next one is from our Los Angeles County Assessor, Jeffery Prang. Jeffery, are you ready?
I am ready when you are, Mayor.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm so happy to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you this evening. It's great to be here with the city of San Gabriel this evening, and I want to acknowledge you, Mayor, my good friend Chin Ho Lau, along with your colleagues. I know that the city of San Gabriel is in very capable hands with the 5 members of the city council. I did want to give a shout out to Councilmember Benchaka and Assistant City Clerk Marilyn Bonus for helping set up this valuable time together. And of course, I want to thank the entire city council for the good work that you do on behalf of the city of San Gabriel. I'm really excited to be here this evening, and I think that the information I'm going to present will be useful to you and provide some insights into the things that the assessor does and how it's relevant to the city of San Gabriel. Forgive me if you've heard me speak before, but I repeat some of the same things over and over again because the county is very large and most people have never heard it the first time. But I always like to begin my remarks by telling people what I do and, as importantly, what I do not do. I do not collect taxes. I'm often called the tax assessor, but there is another guy who does that. He has got a very intuitive title. He's called the tax collector. There's no such thing as a tax assessor. It's the conflation of 2 separate offices. For those who don't know a lot about my office, as the assessor, I'm one of 3 countywide elected officials. The other 2 are the sheriff and the district attorney. I administer a department with about 1,300 employees. We're located in 6 law offices throughout the county, and we're the largest local assessment agency in the United States. We're responsible for establishing the value for over 2.5 million real property parcels and business assessments annually, which last year were valued at $1.76 trillion. I think I'm supposed to be giving directions on slides. I can't do that because I'm lost now. I think we should be on the, forgive me, we should be on the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth slide going in the fourth slide, I think. This year, property tax, getting back to where I started, where I left off with the value of the county at $1.7 trillion. This year, property tax revenues that begin with my office's valuation will provide nearly $17 billion in revenue for vital public services such as public health, hospitals, parks, libraries, police, and roads, and quite candidly, all the services that the city of San Gabriel provides. All the things that we rely on, from schools to local government, property taxes tend to be one of the largest sources of revenue for many cities. Next slide, please. In addition to real property, which includes land and improvements, I'm also responsible for establishing the value for what is known as business personal property. And this includes furniture, equipment, and machinery. It also includes aircraft, both commercial and general aviation aircraft, mobile homes, boats, and believe it or not, even racehorses. Next slide, please. My primary responsibility is the production of what is called the annual assessment roll, which is essentially the inventory of all taxable property in the county. And the assessment roll serves a number of functions. One, it's an important planning document for local government because they use it to prepare their budgets in anticipation of property tax revenues. It also serves as an indication of as to the health of the local real estate market. Next slide, please. I am happy to report that I've just this month announced the certification of the 2020-2021 assessment roll. And although property value growth is not nearly as great as it was last year, LA County experienced the 11th consecutive year of property value growth since the recession of 2008 to 2010. The 2021 assessment roll grew by $62.9 billion, or 3.7% over the prior year. And again, with a total value of all assessed property in the county at $1.76 trillion. And this is really quite exceptional given the fact that the economy suffered a great deal over the course of the last year. There's a number of factors that have contributed to the change in property value. One is the increase in cost of living that is allowed for under Prop 13. Proposition 13 allows property values to be adjusted by no more than 2% annually, but this year it will only be adjusted by 1% because of the pandemic. Business personal property growth, which again is business equipment, furniture, and machinery. This year, that property actually reflected a dip in value. This is the first time we've ever seen that since Prop 13 went into effect over 40 years ago. We did see an increase in new construction, although it's only roughly half of the typical growth that we have seen in recent years. But the transfers of property, that's the buying and selling of property, are still strong and served a role in continuing the growth of the assessment role and property values in the county. To give you an idea of what's going on in the local market, I've included a table that displays the assessment growth percentages for the city of San Gabriel and cities adjacent, including Monterey Park, Alhambra, Rosemead, and San Marino. As you can see, they all grew between 2.4 and 3.2%. San Gabriel property values grew at 3.2% last year. Monterey Park at about 3.4%, and the other cities in the same vicinity. I also included in this chart the number of homes, apartments, and commercial properties in each of those cities. Next slide, please. This year, San Gabriel was listed with a modest 3.2% increase in property values. This is mainly attributed to the construction of some new commercial properties, including that fairly new project, the Province, a 5-story mixed-use development that features 127 residential units, about 75,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. Another project that's close to completion, which will be contributing to the growth of the assessment role, is a mixed-use development rising at Valley and Del Mar, which will include a 222-room Hyatt hotel, 87 condos, and about 55,000 square feet of retail. No doubt that this one and similar developments in the city will have a positive impact on median sales price in the city and property tax revenues. Next slide. Despite COVID and the economic recession that continues to accompany it, the real estate market in LA County fared reasonably well over the course of the last year. LA County median sales price for single-family residences, not including condos, rose almost 22% year over year to an all-time high in June. Our current data shows that the median sales price for a single-family home in the county is $816,000. Two major contributors to the increase in residential property values. One is that there has been very low inventory since the beginning of COVID. So we saw multiple buyers competing for the few homes that were available, as well as the historically low mortgage rates. I've got another chart here that shows the median sales price of homes in San Gabriel, as well as some of the homes in the surrounding areas. San Gabriel median sales price for a home is higher than the county average. It's at $950,000, and the year-over-year increase shows some quite incredible growth at 16.6%. Next slide, please. As I mentioned previously, small businesses were which are responsible for paying business property tax were hit particularly hard due to COVID. As a result, a lot of this business property went unused, and our data shows that as of April, small business revenue in LA County had decreased by nearly 31% compared to the year previously. We've been proactively reviewing businesses that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, and we are providing proactive property tax relief to over 47,000 small businesses countywide to reflect the impacts of COVID. As an example, the reductions to these small businesses thus far has totaled over $210 million in reduced assessed value. In San Gabriel, we have proactively reduced the personal property assessments for about 484 businesses out of 833. This represents about 58% of all unsecured assessments in the city. So if you're a business owner and your business did not receive a proactive reduction in your business personal property, it's important to remember that those businesses can still request a review of business property by filing what's called a decline in value review application, which is on my website. This also applies to real property if you believe that your business property experienced a value decline. Next slide, please. A decline in value is what occurs when the current market value of your property is less than the current assessed value of your property, which is more or less the price you paid for it when you bought the property plus the annual 2% adjustment. If you think your property is worth less now than when you paid for it, you can file online for a decline in value review starting July 2nd. Although it is very unlikely that your residential property would have experienced a decline. As I said, San Gabriel residential properties increased over 16% this last year. Next slide. Another topic I want to touch on, one of the things that's been coming up quite a bit in recent months is Proposition 19. This was a measure that was passed by the voters last fall. It went into effect as of April. Prop 19 affects, makes some changes to Prop 13. It does two primary things. One, the part of the bill that was actually most popular with the voters is a component that allows a homeowner who's over 55 years old, severely disabled, or the victim of a natural disaster to transfer their property tax base with them when they move, sell their home, and purchase a new one. So let's say you bought your home in 1990, you have a low tax base, but if under Prop 19, if you're a senior or eligible homeowner, you can transfer that tax base when you buy a new home. You can transfer it up to 3 times. You could buy a home anywhere in the state and a home of any value, and be able to take that historically low tax base with you. The second component refers to transfers between family members, specifically between parents and children and grandparents and grandchildren. This part was not very well publicized during the campaign. Previously in California, you could transfer your home and $1 million of additional property to your children without that property being reassessed. The children could inherit your property and the original tax base. But Prop 19 changes that. So now under Prop 19, the only property that your children can inherit from you with the tax base is your primary residence. Secondly, in order for them to inherit the property and the tax base, the child must make that home their primary residence within 1 year. There's also a limit on how much of that tax base they can inherit. So essentially, if your property is worth $1 million or less, they can inherit the property and there'll be no reassessment. If your home is worth more than $1 million, then the property taxes will go up. There will be a new blended assessment for your kids, which will include a partial inherited property tax base, plus a new formulaic base that addresses that value of the home over $1 million. This is causing a lot of concern for people who are not as supportive of giving up a lot of family inheritance benefits in exchange for senior transfer benefits. But these are some of the challenges that we are dealing with right now with Prop 19. Even though the measure is fully in effect, there are a lot of ambiguities in the legislation as was written. We're seeking legislation to clarify a lot of those ambiguities. The challenge we have right now is we don't have legislation in effect yet. So a lot of property owners are asking us for guidance, and we don't have any guidance to give. For example, if you, one of the ambiguities, let's say you have 3 children that you want to inherit your property, and the law seems to suggest that for them to inherit the property and the tax base, all 3 of the children would have to move into the property. Obviously, that's absurd, but we do need legislative clarification to say that that's absurd. I don't have the authority to address that. Hopefully, that legislation will be adopted by the end of this legislation. We can begin to provide more clarity. Next slide. If you have questions about Prop 19, we've created a special web page on my website that answers a lot of the questions that we know the answers to now about Prop 19. There's also some calculators on there that will tell you what your new tax base will be if you transfer your home as a senior, or if you're transferring your property to your children that doesn't meet the certain base standards. And the last thing I wanted to mention, next slide please, is the a tax savings programs for homeowners. This is a program called the Homeowners Exemption. It is our most easily accessible property tax savings program. The homeowners exemption is available to anybody who owns their home and who occupies it as their principal residence annually as of July 1st. It will reduce your assessed value by $7,000, which saves you about $70 a year on your property taxes. We estimate that in LA County, about 1/3 of qualifying homeowners do not file for this exemption, primarily because they simply don't know about it. In fact, in San Gabriel, we estimate that 28% of all homeowners who are eligible to save money with a property with a homeowner's exemption do not claim it. And again, they don't claim it because they simply don't know about it. And this is one of the things I would love to do to work with the city of San Gabriel to help promote this information to your residents, to that nearly 1/3 who might want to save some money and don't know about it, whether it be through working on our website or our newsletters. We want to make sure that everybody who has an opportunity to save some money takes advantage of it. So, Mr. Mayor, council members, I hope I didn't go on too long, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to visit with you and share this information. As you know, the assessor's office is a rather obscure office, so sometimes being able to work with our local elected officials to share this in venues such as this is the best way to make sure that the public gets information they need to navigate the complex world of property taxes and tax savings.
Thank you, Honorable Prang, for your very important information. Are you open for any questions?
Sure.
Our city council? Okay, well, good. Any councilor question for our Honorable Jeff Prang? Nobody? Well, I have one. No, I want to help you say, homeowners exemption. It's just, the only problem is, it's just $70. Well, all right, let's do a campaign and say everyone claim for your own home, and just maybe there's a website that we can refer to, and it's a simple form, right? Simple form to file.
It's a very simple form. You only need to do it once. It is a very low savings, unfortunately. They established it in 1970 when home values were $30,000. So at that point, it may have meant something. But it's still, right now, a lot of people are still struggling because of COVID. They may be unemployed. They may be on fixed incomes. And it's not a lot of money, but any type of savings right now when things might be tight for a lot of folks is helpful.
Yes, thank you. So I see raising hand by Councilmember Fu. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Assessor Prang, for making the time and coming and presenting a lot of this extremely helpful and valuable information. My question is, for when the projects, for instance, that are under construction now on Valley Boulevard, and you mentioned a few of them are completed, at what point in time does the reassessment take place or occur?
Happens all the time. So even the moment that a permit is pulled, the way we do our work is the registrar gives us a deed, or your city building department sends us a permit. And once we get the permit, we begin the assessment process, and we assess it all the way through construction. We call that those properties are being partially complete assessed. So and once it's completed, we'll put the full value on. But if it's halfway done, there'll be a 50% assessment assigned to those developments.
And then as a follow-up, if those projects contain for sale condo units, for example, and they're sold at either pre-completion or immediately thereafter, does that also factor? I mean, I assume that would also factor into the overall assessment.
So each condo will be assessed as its own as a separate economic unit. So as the condos are sold, we will assess those, and that whoever owns them will receive a property assessment and property taxes based on the value of that individual unit.
Got it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. And another raised hand by Councilwoman McChaka. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being here also. Much appreciated. I wanted to, first of all, just ask you to go back to your staff just to make one correction. We don't have a Hyatt. It's actually a Hilton. And it's Curial. And so they got the H right, but it is the Hilton. So I wanted to be sensitive about that. But second, just so you know, we have an amazing economic development team that actually does ongoing outreach to our businesses. And so hopefully someone from your office could maintain a relationship with them. I know they will be taking this information and sharing it with our businesses, but they have a newsletter that goes out on a regular basis filled with helpful information. It's at no cost to our businesses. It's just providing, great service to our business owners, and they've been doing this during COVID, and it's just been a really good, valuable resource. So I just wanted you to know that you do have someone that you can reach out to. Obviously, any of us as council, but also our staff, you can have that direct contact, that direct impact to help.
Would love to connect with your team. We have a lot of valuable information that in particular businesses would find useful we are a business-oriented agency. Would love to have a vehicle to be able to deliver that information to keep your businesses informed and about best way to handle the property tax system.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned two projects in city of St. Gabriel, but as a matter of fact, that we have more than that. Just Valley Boulevard, we probably have 6 under construction right now in St. Gabriel Boulevard. There will be future developments. But anyway, I have a question for you. So how do you access a country club? How do you, hey, say, well, it's worth $1 or worth a 10 million?
Country clubs are a specialty, and I will, forgive me if I don't have all the details on them. They're very difficult to assess because a lot of country clubs are based on memberships. And the typical rule of thumb in a transfer of the ownership of property is when 50% plus 1% of that property changes hands. Because of the way that a lot of country clubs are owned, they don't get reassessed, so they actually are assessed at very relatively low values. You would have to have the way that they're organized, you almost have to have half the members leave and another 50% join to reach that threshold for us to reassess that property.
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, real quickly, I wanted to share with Jeffrey that the person that your office would be in contact with is someone that you used to work with when you were in West Hollywood. I can't pronounce her last name, but her first name is Dominica. Dominica, can you please chime in to talk to your former council member that you used to work with?
Hi, Mr. Prang. It's good to see you. I was just sharing with Councilwoman Menchaca that it is a small world, and we will be reaching out to your team definitely. But I did work for you when you were a councilman in West Hollywood, and it's good to see you here tonight.
I remember you. Nice to see you as well. Please reach out. I would love to. I think we have a lot of things we could do, information we'd love to share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dominica.
Well,
I see raising hand by Vice Mayor Dean. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Assessor Jeffery. Yeah. See you on the virtual this time. Okay. Yeah. My question is, first of all, for the reassessor for our mixed use account, like especially, I think you're talking about hotel and include condo.
Yeah.
So the assessment it's based on, you say it's if based on the permit or based on the market value.
So the rule of thumb in establishing the assessed value is market value. We are obligated under Prop 13 to establish market value at the time of transfer. So when we get the permit or when we get the deed, that's when the process will begin. Now, in a mixed use, it's a little bit more complicated because mixed use with condos, the condos will be assessed upon, when the builder owns them, they will be assessed collectively. They will then be assessed separately as each one of them is sold. And so it's a little bit more involved of an assessment process.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of people they want to think of which one is reasonable for them, you know.
So they won't have a choice. We're obligated to do it in accordance with the law. So there's certain processes, certain timelines and processes that will require us to make the assessment based on the subdivision.
Okay. Thank you. Another question for the business property. I remember, so you do also do if based on the business property, like the business equipment, right? They still charge the tax. I remember when you go on a board, so you set up some like a minimum guideline. If less than, I don't know how much, before like $2,000 is
Yes.
way, right?
So when I was first elected in 2014, the law required that any business that had $2,000 of business equipment, furniture, machinery, other equipment, had to pay property taxes on that. But the challenge was, if you have $2,000 worth of business equipment and you pay tax at 1%, that's $20. But it was costing me $50 to process that assessment. So we were losing money. So I urged the Board of Supervisors to raise that threshold from $2,000 to $5,000, which actually provided some property tax relief to 50,000 small businesses. And we're actually doing a study right now to see if we can raise that minimum threshold even higher, because it's still, we don't think we can justify.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this also cost your county the tax dollar money. Actually, you lose money, and also cost the burden for the small business, especially.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's my experience too. Thank you to increase the limit. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any others? Council have a question for Honorable Prang? I don't see anyone else. Well, thank you for coming out today and the presentation.
Thank you,
Nice
Mr.
to see you again.
I appreciate you and your colleagues a lot indulging me this evening. I'm glad that we had the opportunity to present this information. I look forward to coming back in the future and providing some updates.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Next item, please.
COVID-19 briefing. Presentations will be made by Fire Division Chief Newton Ong and Police Captain Ricky Nakamura.
Good evening, Mayor Lau and Vice President Ding and council members. My name is Newton Ong, with Division Chief. Steve Wallace sends his regards. He apologizes for not being able to attend, but I do have a short briefing in regards to COVID-19 updates. Right now, presently, we have over the past 11 days, we have over 1,000 cases of COVID per day. Certainly a number to keep an eye on, but the death rates are low. It's only affected the unvaccinated population. No COVID calls in the city, or have we heard of increase in call volumes in our city or our adjacent neighboring cities. Our skilled nursing facilities are stable, and there's no increase in calls from our nursing facilities. And we have good inventory of our PPE, and all our folks are healthy. We are staffed at 100%, and no one is sick or have any symptoms of COVID that would jeopardize our staffing and protection of the city. In a report, do I have any questions?
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Oh, I'm sorry, was there a question?
Well, I can wait till you're finished, Ricky or Captain, and then I'll ask my question.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead, Captain.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is Captain Ricky Nakamura from the Police Department. Unfortunately, I have to report that we do have one employee that succumbed to COVID. However, it's going to be a mild symptoms, and he is currently undergoing the 10-day obligatory stay at home for the 10-day period. So we are okay at the police department. We are still at 100% capacity. With the recent mandate of indoor masking, we are still going on forward with the education process. It has definitely yielded positive results throughout the 2020 pandemic for us. We are not going to be doing enforcement. That's going to be our last resort. But our service is at 100%, and that will be the end of my report.
Thank you. So, yeah, open question from council members. Councilwoman, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I guess I'll pass it on to Mark, actually, because we've kind of shared some good news, I think, with regards to the rates of vaccinations. There was a report that was done for each city, the rate of vaccinations. And San Gabriel, I'm happy to report, is in the top, I think it's top 3, Mark, or is it top? It depends on which week we're looking at. Did you get the most recent information? But we're at 80% today. Irwindale, that only has about 1,000 residents, is at 87% in the San Gabriel Valley. Monterey Park with 82%, and South Pass and San Gabriel were tied with about 80 to 81%. So I think that's really good news for everyone to know, because I know there's a great concern. Obviously, we all want 100%, but I just thought that would just be some silver lining during this time as we are approaching a surge now with the Delta. Was there anything else, Mark, that you found out in that report?
I would say that everything you said is correct, but even you mentioned our ranking in the San Gabriel Valley, but I think it's even more important to note that of the 88 cities in the Los Angeles County area, we're number 8 out of all of those in vaccinations, which I find very refreshing given that we had such high death rates and such high case rates for our city and the neighboring cities around us, that we have done the hard work of getting our residents vaccinated. And I think it's a testament to the council and our staff that work so hard to get the word out to our hardest to reach community members. And with our language and access issues, I think it's something that we should all be proud of, that we came out so high, and hopefully it'll continue to rise. And as Chief Ong stated, the case rates seem to be affecting most of the unvaccinated people. The people who are vaccinated that get the Delta variant tend to have very mild symptoms and aren't hospitalized, and very few pass away. So I would recommend that we all continue to be diligent, that we wear masks, and if you know people that aren't vaccinated, we can still get anybody who wants a vaccine vaccinated. So thanks for passing that on, Councilwoman Menchaca.
Okay, any other city council members? So if not, I have a comment, it's regarding to open up our city hall, and we still cannot meet in person. But there's a recent study, from UCLA and others. EPA already approved copper can kill SARS-CoV-2. So it's interesting, all these places start putting copper over stainless or plastics, because all these surfaces, the virus can live or last weeks or even longer, but coppers actually could eventually kill them. So this is I think it's a good thing. For instance, our elevators, we have push button, and they are plastic, so they're it's dangerous. So I think if we can have some kind of copper membrane, and just on top of that, and also the handrails. We have handrails that going up from ground floor to second floor, and we can put some of the copper materials over that, and especially door knobs and or handles and toilet handles, that kind of stuff. With very, very little investment, we can make sure our facility is much, much safer. And this has already been approved by EPA, and many other places already starting using copper. So I think it's something that we can consider, because we want to make sure our city hall is safe, and especially for our council meeting is safe. And so I think it's something that we could do. And I sent all the information to our fire chief and also our city manager. But it's just a piece of information. I think if we want to open up in next meeting, and maybe we can just improve it a little, with very little money to invest. So that's just my comment. Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
Consent calendar. I'm sorry, public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the city council on items of interest that are not on the agenda but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Gabriel City Council. And we do have 2 public comments this evening. The first is from Dr. Chastity Jennings Nunez, HERE Commission Chair, and reads as follows. To the City Council and residents of San Gabriel, I would like to invite you to attend the next meeting of the HERE Commission on July 27th at 6:30 p.m. The meeting will be virtual and available on the City of San Gabriel's YouTube channel. In accordance with our 2021 annual work plan goals of community engagement, we will have our first educational program. The topic will be a presentation on implicit bias. The presentation will be a thoughtful, engaging video that will serve as a great introduction to ongoing discussion and education. Please join us and encourage others to participate, particularly while meetings are still virtual and much more accessible. Thank you. The next comment is from Belle Lim and reads as follows. Dear council members, my name is Belle Lim and I am a resident of San Gabriel. I live in an apartment on San Gabriel Boulevard. I have lived here for 20 years and I have been bothered by secondhand smoke coming from other units every day. That is the reason we started a coalition against secondhand smoke in multi-unit housing. Smoking has been a nuisance to me from a very young age. I was always surrounded by many people who smoke, and it has become a prevalent annoyance in my life. I have many neighbors in my unit who smoke daily, and I would always remember complaining about the stench from cigarettes. My family has even tried to explain to them that the smell is so uncomfortable to us, but since there are no rules implemented, they ignore our complaints and continue to smoke freely. My brother was diagnosed with asthma from a young age, and I firmly believe that inhaling the air from people smoking has been a contributing factor to this. Although his symptoms are not as severe now, he still has respiratory problems and are heightened from the smell of cigarettes. I think most people think that the simple solution to not smell the scent is to just close the windows. However, this would only be a temporary solution, and on hot days especially, our windows are always kept open so the scent can easily travel inside our home and lingers inside. Once that initial scent travels into the room, it is difficult to air out. I always had a strong desire to ban smoking in multi-unit housing, especially since I was educated on how bad the effects of secondhand smoking are. I am glad to participate in a coalition to ban smoking in multi-unit housing and believe that if this ban is approved, it can create better environments for everyone. Many cities in LA County has adopted ordinances that ban or limit smoking in multi-unit housing, and we sincerely hope a family-oriented city like San Gabriel will consider a similar ordinance to help protect ourselves and our future generations. We would love to meet with you, whether in person or virtually, to discuss our own experience and solution to this problem. There are many smokers in the city, and I hope we can all do something about it to make living in the city not a nightmare like mine. I kindly request the council to consider implementing a smoke-free multi-unit housing policy. It will most certainly make living environments safer and healthier in the city, not only for us, but our future generations. Regards. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, and recommendations will be approved in one motion unless a member of the city council or public requests separate discussion. We have not received requests from the public to pull any items. However, we have received public comment on item 4H, award of contract for pavement rehabilitation, which I will read at this time when we have 3 comments. The first is from Jan and Jim Stoll, and it reads as follows. To Honorable Mayor Chin-Ho Liao and Council Members Ding, Harrington, Menchaca, and Pu. My husband and I, I'm sorry, one moment. My husband and I highly recommend that you approve the award of the construction contract for the 2021 pavement rehabilitation project contract number 21-04 to All American Asphalt Company tonight. We have owned our Girona Avenue home since 1983 and are embarrassed to live on such a poorly maintained street. We are so pleased that you are going to improve our city's image and our quality of life. Thank you so much. The next comment is from Mike and Kathy O'Keefe and reads as follows. Dear members of San Gabriel City Council, we have lived on Girona Avenue since 1979 and have only had our streets slurry sealed once. This has resulted in such poorly maintained street compared to the cities that surround us. Truly embarrassing and affecting property values and the appearance of the neighborhood. We strongly urge the approval of this project. And the last comment is from Tak and Stella Chow and reads as follows. Honorable Mayor and City Council, we, the homeowner of 500 block Girona Avenue, support the award of construction contract for the ongoing street maintenance proposal. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes the comments.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, well, I guess would any council member like to pull an item for separate discussions? No, none. Do I have a,
I'll move to approve.
oh, you want to move to approve? Okay, is there a second to approve the consent calendar?
I second.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I guess the clerk, can you take the vote, please?
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Menchaca,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Mayor Liao.
Aye,
Motion passed by a vote of 5-0.
thank you. Next item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no public hearing this evening, so the next item is continued business item A, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 674, amending chapter 92 of the San Gabriel Municipal Code to include voluntary cat licensing. Neighborhood Improvement Services Officer Maria Sanchez will make the staff presentation.
Go ahead, Maria.
Maria, I think you're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
You can't.
Yes.
Don't worry. Everybody
Okay.
does that on their first time.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Maria Sanchez with Neighborhood Improvement Services. Before I get started, I would like to notify Council that the presentation on this screen is a revised version of the one you received copies of. So next slide, please. Let me go ahead. Let me fix this. So the item before you introduces a voluntary cat licensing program, which was previously discussed at the April 20th, 2021 City Council meeting. The voluntary cat licensing program would be an additional service to residents and will be administered through the San Gabriel Valley Humane Society. Currently, the City of San Gabriel does not provide a licensing service option. While the state of California does not mandate cat licensing as it does with dogs, counties and cities across the state decide whether to adopt an ordinance related to it. Next slide, please. In 2019, our cat intake number was 458, compared to the 2020 number of 193. This drastically low number was due to the impact of COVID-19. Approving a voluntary cat licensing program introduces cat licensing service options to the community with the opportunity to not only identify their cat, but also reunification opportunities. Next slide, please. In researching what other agencies are doing with cat licensing, we learned that while the state does not mandate cat licensing, Los Angeles County does include it in Chapter 10 of their Animal Care and Control Services ordinances. Other jurisdictions, such as Monterey Park and Temple City, adopt all or parts of Title 10. Though in speaking with their staff, we learned that their experiences and compliance varied. San Gabriel has not adopted any part of Title 10 for any of our animal care and control efforts, but we can explore this with further council direction. A voluntary cat licensing program would be a great starting point and may lead to future opportunities for council to consider the introduction of mandatory cat licensing, microchipping, and spay and neuter programs, which can potentially help control the cat population and ultimately impact the city's intake numbers. Licensing could also assist in ensuring that cats are vaccinated for rabies, as currently required for dogs by law in California. Licensing and rabies vaccines together can be an effective way to keep track of pets for public health and safety purposes. Next slide, please. A voluntary cat licensing program is dependent on voluntary compliance, and the proposed fee for voluntary cat licensing is $40. We do not know how many household cats there are in San Gabriel, nor can we anticipate how many households will take advantage of a voluntary program. Revenue from this program will depend on these factors. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that City Council move forward with a voluntary cat licensing ordinance. This concludes my presentation, and staff is available for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Any City Council have questions or factual questions to clarify the report? See none. Okay, well, council deliberation and discussion. Anyone?
Mayor Liao, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can we check if there are any public comments for this item before we move to council deliberation?
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I didn't see that. So open to public comments right now.
Thank you, Mayor. No public comment for this item.
Thank you. Thank you. So for council's deliberations, anyone wants to talk about the cat's license? Yeah.
I'll move to approve because I think we've had the discussion.
Okay, great. As a second.
I second.
Okay, so motion by Councilwoman Menchaca and second by Councilmember Fu. City Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Menchaca,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ding,
Aye.
Mayor Liao.
Aye.
Motion passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, thank you. And next item, please.
Sixth Amendment to the amended and restated agreement with Athens Services. Public Works Director and City Engineer Greg DeVink will make the staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. This is Greg DeVink, the Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of San Gabriel. And I'll give a little brief about the status of the street sweeping contract. The city has contracted with Athens Services for street sweeping services for many years with very good results and a strong relationship. Last year was the multi-year agreement with contract with Athens expired, and Athens offered to continue street sweeping services on a month-to-month basis, continuing with their existing rate and terms of the expired contract. The city advertised an RFP for new street sweeping services, and we came back with the lowest responsible bidder, $54,000 a year, higher than the current rate. Athens submitted a letter for City Council consideration, offering to extend the rate and terms of their past contract for the duration proposed in the RFP, essentially reducing the cost of the RFP results by $54,000. Council accepted this offer, deeming it to be in the best interest of the city, and advised staff to work out the details with Athens and our legal counsel. Tonight, Public Works presents the Sixth Amendment to the amended and restated agreement with Athens Services, which adds a 7-year agreement with an option for up to 3 additional years for street sweeping services per the rate and terms of their past agreement. Athens wanted to have the street sweeping agreement to be an amendment to their existing solid waste agreement in order to address any concerns about the past RFP process, which was ultimately abandoned by accepting their offer to be in the best interest of the public benefit. Our legal counsel, staff in Athens, have thoroughly reviewed this document, and although the solid waste agreement has an evergreen term, this amendment does cap the street sweeping services component to a maximum of 10 years. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any council member have factual questions to clarify the report? Okay, well, this time is for public comment on this item is now closed. Chief City Clerk, please read any comments received for this.
Thank you, Mayor. No comment for this item.
Okay. All right, now it's time for council deliberation and discussion. Anyone wants to talk about it?
Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Jeffery.
Great. I see Christian Warner's on the line, so I'd like to ask if he had anything he would like to add to this item.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, some noise in the background, but we can hear you.
Can you guys hear me right now?
Yes. But there's noise in the background, Christian.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm having trouble. Excuse me for 1 second here. I'm out of town, and so I'm joining you from my phone. So I apologize if this is all messed up and everything on my end. I just wanted to be here for any questions that you guys might have of me, and to let you know that at Athens we're very appreciative of the opportunity to continue street sweeping in the city of San Gabriel. And one of the things that we've worked on this last few months with Greg and Mark and the team is to keep our low street sweeping rates the same with San Gabriel in an effort to save the city thousands of dollars every year, as well as providing the exceptional service that we've done for so many years. So again, we thank you for this opportunity to continue as your street sweeping hauler. And if you have any questions, I'm here for you.
Thank you, Christian. I have no questions.
You have a question? No? No question. I have a question, Christian. Nice to see you. And as a matter of fact, the governor approved $55 million for SB 1383, but the state Senate asking 200 million. So 55 million from governor. So do you know how can city use this money? Because it's part of a SB 1383, the organic waste, disposal. So street cleaning is part of that. And so your city received the funding from state. Can we just say, instead of paying from no, not from the general public. I think we do charge them, but I think we can subsidize some of the ratepayers and say, hey, we reduce the rate. That's what I'm thinking. We can help the city or for the future any rate increase.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question one last time? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So you're well, I think maybe I can ask Greg about it. Because we don't know if this is being passed. Because also they asking $200 million to Cal Recycle also, and Cal Recycle probably can give grants to all the trash haulers and for different programs. But I think for the city, you will receive any funding at all from state senate, and maybe we can use that money for city street clean, because that's part of a SB 1383 program. So that's just my question. Either one of you, if you have answer for that.
I'm not exactly certain what we're allowed to use those funds for. Funds through Cal Recycle. The city is taking advantage of Cal Recycle grants in several ways. I'll talk about some of that later tonight, but we're taking that money and we use it to host our recycled oil event, our household hazardous waste events. The city purchased some bottle filling stations with Cal Recycle money. And most recently, and the most significant, is we received a grant from Cal Recycle towards using rubber in our next paving project. So we do use it in many ways. I'm not sure if it can be used to subsidize solid waste expenses to the ratepayers.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you, Christian. Enjoy your vacation. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Again, I'm so sorry. So sorry about this, but thank you so much.
We'll see you when you get back. Bye. Next item, please. Well, I guess the assistant city clerk, do we have to vote on this, right? So can you take the vote, please?
Mr. Mayor, I think we need a motion and a second still.
Oh, still?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Any second?
I second.
Okay, motion by Councilwoman Menchaca and second by Vice Mayor Dean. Well, Assistant City Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Harrington,
Aye.
Councilmember Menchaca,
Aye.
Councilmember Pu,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Liao.
Aye,
Motion passed by a vote of 5-0.
thank you. Next item, please.
New business item A, Public Works Department Update 2021. Public Works Director Greg DeVink will make the staff presentation.
Greg, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. So the cover slide is now loaded on the screen. Again, this is Greg DeVink, Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of San Gabriel. And this is Public Works annual presentation to council to discuss the many things Public Works has done over the past year and just to discuss some of the exciting projects about to come in the next, or now the current fiscal year. The slide you see here does have some photos of some typical things we do. They're fairly obvious, but the one on the bottom left is the city does a lot of tree trimming of our own effort. That's one of our staff people in our bucket truck trimming a tree. In the center is an interesting story where we had a paving contract to repave the McGrory Alley, where a city staff parks sometimes. And we actually, the contractor took out the asphalt that was there and discovered some historic relics dating back to when the mission was constructed. So that project was stalled and we brought in experts to document, photograph the historic artifacts, which was really pretty much brick foundations of old structures. And then they left the surface all very distorted. And so what we did was city staff went out and poured a very weak slurry coating over the entire alley, which is what the picture is doing. And it's a very weak sand cement mix, which doesn't damage any of the artifacts. You can dig through it in the future if it was ever desired to. So they're protected the artifacts, but then it allowed the contractor to come back again without a massive change order to prep the site for all the disruption that the documentation did with all the artifacts. And then the slide on the bottom right is from the bucket truck looking down at our Christmas tree, where every year we take a giant roundish tree and try and make it look like a cone, and every year it gets a little better. So those are some of the things. We can go to slide 2. So Public Works is made up of 6 different divisions, and I'm in administration. It's a very small group, but it oversees a lot of the Measure W grant money. It's the Cal Recycle money we get, which I described some of the things that Cal Recycle did or we use Cal Recycle for, used oil grant, household hazardous waste, bottle filling stations. We look after staff development, which is training and education, and a bit of oversight of all the other groups. The engineering group is another group of, there's about, I think, 6 people in that group. And they look after all the grants, which is very significant. It's how we fund the vast majority of our capital improvement program. And I'll discuss more of that. But they look after our capital program, and they've been dealing very well with some recent kind of in-house design work policy that we've done. We've greatly reduced our reliance on consultants, and the biggest projects that they're putting out is our annual street paving projects. And very soon we will be getting back into, I guess, a final design of the lift station and having a biddable package put together. I'll discuss that more in the future. Field operations is the group that looks after our infrastructure in the right of way, mostly concrete, asphalt, streetlights, traffic signals, signs, and markings. And we do have an awful lot of things to look after. You don't really realize it, but the city has, I believe, about 7,000-8,000 signs that we look after for reflectivity and fading and damage. We keep them all in good order. Fleet is a group of 3, and they look after 140 vehicles. Vehicles does include our heavy equipment like backhoes and skid steers and dump trucks, some of our trailers like pressure washers and arrow boards. They also look after 7 emergency generators that the city has. And a pretty interesting thing we're doing this year, we've done it before, but this particular year, or the last fiscal year, the city acquired 4 new police vehicles, which are Ford Explorers. And you can see the picture in the bottom left. I was pretty impressed by this. When we buy a brand new Explorer, that picture is all torn apart. So we remove most of the interior panels, the back seats, the flooring. We take off the grills, the rear view mirrors, just to put the lights and sirens and computers and a lot of electronics all over this car. We build the back seats out to be suitable for prisoner transportation. So we take a brand new car and we tear it apart till it looks like a bear was living in it. And it does take about 3 weeks for one mechanic to tear it all apart and put it all back together. And then another few more days to program everything to work in the way that our particular police force is used to having their vehicles operate. So it does take almost a person almost 4 months of a year to build out these 4 cars. So it's a pretty significant effort, but the advantage is they're built exactly the way they want. And then we do forever maintenance, and we're familiar with how they're built out, how they're wired, all the components they have. So ongoing maintenance is a little easier for us. I'll actually draw your attention to the bottom right. That's another photograph from field operations, where that's Mission Boulevard right next to the Mission parking lot. And what we did was we took some parking stalls that were existing and made it a van accessible ADA stall, where we took out some of the concrete, ramped it down, put on the truncated domes. We even poured back the salmon colored concrete. And it doesn't quite match in this picture. Matching concrete is very difficult, but that darker salmon color is the new concrete. And it does fade over time when it dries out and cures and weathers. So it looks closer, blends better today than it does in that photo. But that's something we did in preparation for the opening of the Blossom Food Market. So, Public Works does a lot of things to even help out our development in our community. For parks and facilities, we maintain all our parks, and I'm sure everyone appreciates how good they are. That our parks are very clean, very well maintained, well groomed. Our staff takes pretty serious pride in their parks. We maintain street trees, not all of them, because we do contract out. We have way more trees than we actually can handle. We have approximately 8,000 city-owned trees, and all of them are supposed to be pruned every 4 or 5 years. So it's an enormous effort. We take care of our parkways and all our city facilities. And then we have wastewater operations, which is a newer group. It was kind of broken out and separated mostly from field operations, and they handle all the maintenance needs of our sewer system, storm drains, and they do all our fog inspections, our industrial stormwater inspections. They deal with the lift station constantly. And I guess we're ready for the next slide. So highlighting some new things, this last year was our first year for receiving a grant of Measure W. So San Gabriel's share was about $441,000. And with that, we had to come up with a spending plan of how to use that money as part of the rules for accepting and being approved. And below that is a breakdown of how we split out the $441,000. They're all kind of guesses as to where we'll end the year. They'll need to be adjusted. But what we did, which I thought was all pretty clever and very helpful to the city, was we took $54,000, and all of these were approved expenses for past consultants. So that reimbursed the general fund that was used to pay for prior consulting expenses. $62,000 for current consulting expenses, which was funded by general fund. So that's a reduction to general fund cost. $130,000 for administrative and wastewater staff salaries. It's not 100% of anybody, but it's 50% of one person in administration, and 20% of our wastewater staff is funded by Measure W because they look after this grant and a lot of the work that Measure W funds. $23,000 for stormwater infiltration projects. And while that sounds like a very small number, it's because we're using in-house staff to build those projects. So $23,000 in concrete and gravel goes a very long way. So we're getting a lot of projects done, but we're using in-house labor funded by Measure W. $87,000 more for catch basin maintenance. That used to be contracted out. $16,000 for permits, which is just necessary expenses in dealing with stormwater. That used to be paid by general fund, so that's a reduction to the cities in our cost. And $23,000 was committed for street sweeping, and all the money we relieve from street sweeping is now much more flexible and being allowed for paving. And we're proposing to increase that amount. In the current fiscal year, we put $100,000 for street sweeping. And finally, we did apply for an additional Measure W grant, and we were awarded $300,000 for a feasibility study to divert floodwater from the flood channel at Lugo Park. And I'll discuss that project a little more. Please go to slide 4. So looking back at the year, this was the first annual paving contract. It's actually 2 contracts done simultaneously, where we designed it in-house. And it's the first time we used an alternate treatment of ARAM, which is asphalt rubber aggregate membrane. This project went after some of our medium condition streets using a very affordable process to extend the life, estimated 15 years before they degrade to be really bad and very expensive to fix. You probably have driven around and seen a lot of these streets with ARAM, and they definitely look newer and nicer. They're not as smooth as a brand new paved street, but they're pretty close and they do look fresh. And the important thing is their degradation is greatly slowed. But what's also very interesting is this was completely designed in-house. We managed the contract, the construction contracts. We put it out to bid. We managed the inspection, the payments, closeouts, the grant requirements, all managed in-house without any consultants at all. Prior to this, we relied very heavily on consultants for all of those things. So both projects were completed on time and within budget. And prior to even the contractor working, city staff went out and did weed abatement in the streets, cleaned the cracks out, did crack seal work. And even that we did on the cheap. We rented a trailer for a month. It cost around $3,000 plus the material we used. But all that labor was our own staff, and we prepped the job for this work. So we got about 12 miles of medium condition streets restored for around $1.5 million. So it's actually below our average spending per the year. And it was done in the same year where we had another paving contract that did full remove and replace at over, I think, 1.2 million a mile was the cost of that. So I'm ready for the next slide, slide 5. So some other in-house efforts is we advertised 2 highway safety improvement projects, and the bids came in where one project Caltrans funded enough money and the other project came in $250,000 over the awarded amount. So we're working with Caltrans to see if we can get additional funds to award the other project. The one project we are proceeding with is rapid flashing beacons on San Gabriel at Roses. So all the projects together was 5 different intersections. 2 of them are protected left turn movements to alleviate traffic, and the other 3 were pedestrian safety enhancements at intersections. So San Gabriel and Roses is moving forward. We're trying to get additional funds to afford the other locations. A weird thing with Caltrans is we can't cut the scope to get it within budget because they'll say that's a different project and now you're disqualified yourself. So the only way forward seems to be to request additional money. We have completed a new local road safety plan, which was again grant subsidized. It's an $80,000 total amount, but we have a 10% match. So they pay 72, we pay 8. And we'll begin Safe Routes to School plan, which is also grant subsidized and a bigger grant, but a lot more work. And these are essential to qualifying for some additional grant funds for construction. We also completed the design plans and structural calculations for a future addition to the police station, which we're hoping to construct starting later this year, probably in winter. The only thing really delaying that is a commitment to staff to more urgent priorities at the moment. And we've completed plans for the next annual street paving project, and we will be starting plans for the sewer lift station upgrade, all in-house. So we can go to slide 6. So specifically, looking at 710 Metro Measure R funded projects, San Gabriel was awarded several projects, and we're progressing on 5 of the 6 of them, or 5 of the 7 of them. And so for the first one, $700,000 was awarded to us for signal equipment upgrades at our traffic signals. And so we have put out an RFP, and council awarded this at the last council meeting. And we even met with the vendor just this morning to go over the order and delivery and some issues. And so that's moving forward, but we're going to have new traffic controllers with battery backups, the most modern technology, so we can synchronize intersections and ultimately tie into a future fiber network, all to improve traffic flow, but it also improves safety and reliability, particularly with the battery backups. As you know, a lot of our signals don't have battery backups, so they're actually very dangerous in a power failure situation. We're also awarded $3.13 million for an adaptive traffic response signal control project, and that's a very elaborate way to say fiber connectivity. So that project was requested to run fiber all along Valley for the whole length of the city, and then along San Gabriel from Las Tunas down to Valley. And it essentially enables us to connect a lot of our signals in those corridors. But when it came time to actually finally detailing how this will be awarded to us, we did change the language to say that if there's sufficient funds beyond the cost of those 2 streets, we would like to be able to expand the corridor. And Metro accepted that. So there's a chance they will fund beyond Valley and San Gabriel Boulevard. What we've already begun is our own staff is installing 7,800 feet of 4-inch conduit along Las Tunas, along the south gutter line. Council did award about $60,000 for all the conduit needed for that and the pull boxes, and we're doing it with in-house labor. And I just got a cost estimate if we contracted that work out, it would be over 700,000 plus pothole work, so about 800,000. So we're doing it at about 10% of the competitively bid cost. And we're rushing to get it done right now with in-house staff because we will be paving Las Tunas in the very near future, and we want to get it in the ground. The next is 13.6 million, which is 3 projects combined, which are intersections on Valley at San Gabriel, Valley at Del Mar, and Valley at New. And what we did there was we entered into a no-cost agreement with Metro where they would provide all the labor and administration for the design portion of this work. And they did hire a company to do this. They've done traffic studies, and I'll be discussing more in the next slide, I think, on this item. And then there's still 7.7 million for 2 more projects. One is at Mission in Las Tunas, and the other is at San Gabriel and Marshall. They've both been on hold because so much money and so much work is going on that it was a bit overwhelming. I do envision releasing Mission in Las Tunas possibly later this year and working with Metro again to oversee the design. And then San Gabriel and Mission, that's still going to stay on hold a bit longer. So if we can go to the next slide, slide 7. So these are the 3 mission projects. I'm going to feature this project for a little bit, but these are how the projects are starting. So this is field data, and what it is 1, 2, and 3 are the 3 different intersections of Valley at New, Valley at Del Mar, Valley at San Gabriel. And you can see by the arrows, their traffic counts for all the different directions. And what these numbers reflect is the cars per hour in the peak morning traffic and the peak evening traffic. The evening traffic are the numbers in brackets. So for example, in slide 1, looking at the arrow straight down, it says 640, and then in brackets, 562. So the morning rush hour traffic does 640 cars an hour heading down at New, and 562 is the average coming back in the evening. It's very important to have accurate data of how much traffic volume there is and what directions, so we know that the behavior of these intersections and what needs to happen to improve them. You can see some of the numbers even go beyond 1,000, I think. So Valley going east-west is very busy. So because Metro's funding traffic mitigation efforts, we are interested in improving traffic along Valley. So this is the initial research findings on traffic, and we can go to slide 8. So the next 3 slides look a lot like this, and I'm going to run through one at a time. But on the left side is Valley and New today. It's an aerial photograph, and it reflects all the existing traffic lanes, the traffic widths, the turn pockets, everything there reflects accurately what is today. And then there's cars drawn on there, not drawn, but computer generated, that model the data we just saw. And then on the right is Valley and New with easement expansions, some right-of-way takes. And what they do is they add turn pockets and through lanes different at each intersection. So if you could hit the play button on the bottom of this model. There, hit play. So I find this fascinating. It's like watching the goldfish screensaver. I can look at it for a very long time and be entertained. But each one of these videos is about a minute. And what you'll see is the computer generates traffic models based on the volumes we have and the lane configurations. And we can actually predict the backups and delays and throughputs of cars. So what you'll observe as this happens is look at the left one and look at the north-south queue. If you look south of Valley, the queue goes all the way off the screen. And on the right side, it doesn't back up very much. And that's because of geometry changes at the intersection and timing changes. Again, if you looked at east-west now, as the traffic phases change, Valley going east is starting to back up, but on the left side, it's already off the screen. It's a much longer queue. So this modeling actually predicts with different lane configurations, the traffic throughput and the delays per car. You can go to slide 9 and hit play again. So this is the same thing at Del Mar. So on the left is the existing Del Mar configuration. You can actually see the hotel in construction at the top left corner of the intersection. You can hit play. It didn't seem to go. There it goes. So again, I'm just going to play through these. They're a minute each, just in case people want to view this later online and see what's going on. So I'll just cycle through this. But they're all three are the same. And what's interesting is it mimics everything. You can even see the longer vehicles. It's mimicking the percentage of trucks that we have on these streets. It does mimic the left and right turn behavior and the right percentages. And again, you'll see in all three of these models, the queues tend to be worse on the left side in the existing conditions versus the right side, which has some expansion and improved throughput. It seems to be generally more effective east-west on Valley than north-south, but the north-south is generally improved as well. But for the most part, at all three intersections, the additional lanes and turn pockets are east-west on Valley. So we can go to the next slide, slide 10, and hit play again. So here we are at Valley and San Gabriel, another minute video of what's going on today and what's going on with the geometry changes. One last thing is they run these models with, I guess, engineered calculations of what traffic will be like in 2045. If you see in the bottom right, it does say 2045 build. I don't know how accurate it is predicting the future because I don't know what driving is going to look like more than 2 decades from now when everybody has an electric self-driving car. And I don't know, I personally believe driving behavior will be quite different 2 decades from now, just from the nature of technology and how fast transportation is changing. But you can see the queues on the left backing up off the screen and the queues on the right much shorter. So again, it's all same thing, new intersection. It's clearing out quicker. So we can go to slide 11 now. So now that you got some cool videos, now we're back to text, and I'll try and go through it quickly. There's some highlights of the year is we did get 2 playgrounds constructed, both during the COVID period. We got a new playground at Lugo and a second Kaboom-funded playground at Roosevelt Park. And while this is a Public Works presentation, Community Services really was the instigator that got both of these projects for the city. They did solicit the funding and worked on the design, and really Public Works stepped in once a lot of background work was already done. So I think Community Services should get some kudos on these items. The next thing is pretty impressive. We go out and we collect a lot of bulky items. Every week of the year, we go out and fill dump trucks full of mattresses and refrigerators and couches that for some unknown reason, people keep putting out on our sidewalks. But over the year, we collect about 50 full dumpsters of bulky items. We also purchased a solar-powered speed radar sign. And every 3 months, we move it to a new location. And we did this all the way back to when Country Club requested speed humps for a perceived speeding problem on their street. So we did purchase these radar signs, and not only do they flash how fast you're going to educate drivers and try and change some driver behavior, but they also track data. We know the traffic volume, the times of days, and how fast they're going. And pretty consistently, they do show we don't have severe speeding problems. There is speeding for sure, but the vast majority of traveling cars are within 5 miles an hour of the posted speed limits. So I think that they're helpful to have and supportive of what we actually need to do, because a lot of times people's perception of speeding is they were out there when some car was going too fast, but very few cars are doing that. Or in the case of Country Club, I think they don't even have sidewalks, so you could be walking next to cars feeling a little less protected without a curb or something. We have been spending a lot of effort at the police department, and we did restore the exterior of a trailer. We relocated it, ran new power and data to it, and then refinished it. We put a new skirt around the bottom that was all rotten, and we repainted the exterior. And even a bigger project was a 14-stall carport, where we started off by just re-roofing it because it was leaking below, but then the wood was rotten and it just kept growing. So we repainted everything, put on a new roof, and then we ultimately paved all the stalls beneath it. So if you go in the back police parking lot, which is now secured because 2 years ago we built a block wall and got some gates working. It feels like a very different compound in their parking lot right now, and it's much nicer. We also spent a lot of time, our electricians did, on one very stubborn electrical circuit in the northeast or northwest area of the city. And our electrical system is very old and frail, like many cities. And it was put in at a time with the technology of the day with galvanized metal conduit, which now is all rusted and collapsed, and our conductor wire with inside is seized in place. And every once in a while it shorts out, and we have to actually figure out where the short is by testing the circuit, each manhole or pull box to pull box, and then finding where it's not, there's no connectivity, and then potholing halfway and then testing one side. And it's just a very tedious process. So ultimately we find the short because we can't pull the wire out and pull a new one in because the conduit's gone. And boring new conduit's very expensive, and we don't have the equipment to do it ourselves. So every time they fixed it and re-energized the circuit, a new place would short out. So this happened 5 times where we had to trench, put a new conduit, set a new pull box, find it, fix it. So that was a very frustrating effort, but just something Public Works is doing. We did bid and award new service contracts for tree maintenance. We did change vendors this year to North Star Land Care. So you'll see North Star trucks, and they've been in town lately doing a lot of grid pruning. We upgraded, or we renewed contracts for Ace Trench maintenance, street sweeping, sewer root control, and sewer insect control. We fully reconstructed the restroom at Smith Park. We essentially gutted it and refinished every surface inside, put in all new fixtures, new partitions, new accessories, new skylights. We put a new parapet roof around it. We fixed the staff area with new windows and new cabinetry inside, graffiti coated the whole thing, put new landscaping around it, even welded some of the rotten bars on the gates and window screens. So now it's still kind of a dated architecture, but it's in very good condition and it looks much newer and cleaner. And we did it for, I believe, under 50,000. And if you recall in past budgets that were approved, there was a project proposed, unfunded, for several years in a row of about 450,000 for a new restroom at Smith Park. So we did it under 50,000. We do ongoing routine maintenance at all our parks. We trim a lot of our trees, sewers, streets, sidewalks, signs, paint marking, street lights. We maintain the metro lots. We maintain some of our medians, and we do a lot of work at our city facilities. And again, I previously mentioned we got an additional 300,000 grant from Measure W for a feasibility study at Lugo Park, which I will now talk about in the next slide. Slide 12, please. So we proposed to a conceptual project where we take water out of the Alhambra Wash at Lugo Park. and essentially pump it into the park and infiltrate that water into the ground. Lugo Park has a creek bed that was constructed artificially many years ago, and it's dry almost all year round. And so this project will take water from the creek into a separation chamber to get out some grit and debris, pump it into an equalization tank where it's further settled and cleaned a bit. And there we build up a volume. And when we have enough volume built up in that tank, there's two pumps that discharge. So one of them, if you can see kind of at the left side of the ball field, or if you can see through the map in the cul-de-sac of the road into Lugo Park, there's a blue box, and there's two lines coming out of that are blue. One heads east to the start of the dry creek bed, which will then flow all the way left to the left side of to the start of where that pink shape is. And then the other pumped line will pump to the west to the start of the pink shape, which is a newly constructed bioswale. So on the right side, the right half of the park will infiltrate through a rocky creek, and the left side will infiltrate through a bioswale, kind of creating a wetland with different vegetation and habitat for living species. And both of those will have an endpoint, and any excess water that reaches the end will go back to that equalization tank. And when that's overfilled, it'll just go back into the channel. Some interesting things about this is that when you look down at the flood channel, and you always see a little bit of flow pretty much every day of the year. I've never seen it dry before. Even when it hasn't rained for 5 months, it's still wet. But you look down at it and it doesn't look like much water. It's a little bit of flow compared to what it can be. But it's a bit deceiving. The dry weather flow in that channel is actually 0.5 cubic foot per second, which equates to 13,000 gallons per hour, or 332,000 gallons a day, which is roughly the equivalent of about 15 average swimming pools. Every day is going down that creek. So it really is deceiving, but it's an awful lot of water that we can pull out of there. And it's a bit contaminated with pollutants and algae growth. But when it infiltrates into the earth is really one of the most effective filters of water. And by the time it gets all that water through the earth down to the different aquifers, it's pretty much near potable quality. So we would use the earth below Lugo Park to infiltrate water and recharge our aquifers. So what that ultimately does is reduce pollutants out to the waters of the United States, which is what the goal of Measure W is. And it also recharges a natural resource, our drinking water supplies. We have the conceptual plans done, and we're doing the application package with the consultant hired by Measure W. The deadline is July 31st. So in less than 2 weeks, we will be submitting an application for $6 million to come up with a final design and the construction costs for this project. We can go to the next slide. Slide 13. A couple other things to come is the City Hall elevator upgrade, which was severely delayed by COVID production issues with their new controller boards. Unfortunately, I was really hoping to be there in person tonight to do this, but the work is essentially done, but we could not get a state inspector in there in time to approve the work. So the elevator's not allowed to be used until it's signed off by the state inspector. We will hopefully complete the Safe Routes to School report required for grant funding. I'm hoping to finally complete the sewer master plan update and submit it to the water board for approval. It's quite different than the past sewer master plans. And I've done an update on this before, but to quickly recap, we did solicit bids for a sewer master plan right when I started working here. We got one bid for $498,000 to update this plan. And we decided to do it in-house, mostly with an intern and GIS and purchasing some software for sewer modeling. And ultimately, we should have it done, I think, well, under $150,000, between $100,000 and $150,000. instead of 500,000. I think we were slower to get it done by using a part-time employee, but it's an enormous savings to the city, and it actually gave us more control over everything all the way through. We will be installing these new traffic control cabinets that Metro funded. So we did the procurement as we take delivery. We'll be installing them with our own in-house staff. We will be, well, we've already started constructing a new reconstructing a restroom at the South Fire Station. So their primary staff fire station right now has been gutted down. We've taken out the fixtures and the flooring, and we'll be reconstructing it, making it quite a bit nicer. It's another, like the police department, it's an older building that hasn't seen a lot of love and could use some updating. And hopefully in this the current fiscal year, we will begin construction of the police department addition. And I don't know that we will finish this fiscal year. Every time I take a guess at construction, it goes quite a bit longer than I thought. But it'll be well underway this fiscal year. And I think that'll go quite a long way to improving the working situation at the police department. So we can go to slide 14. So the next big thing we're doing after street design with our engineering staff is we're going to put together biddable plans to go out for the upgrades to our, what we think is poorly designed and deficiently sized sewer pump station. This pump station ultimately became an element of the ACE trench when the trench came through and cut off our old sewer system that used to just work by gravity, necessitating this pump or pump station. But we're going to do a couple things. We're going to do some of the work ourselves, what we're able to do. So right now, there's a wet well with a tall riser cone that reduces to 3 feet diameter to a manhole at the top. We've already procured new submersible pumps that have to go down in the wet well, and they don't fit through that 3-foot reduced cone. So our own staff is going to dig down, pull off the reducer cone and frame and cover. We will drop on a new 4-foot pipe all the way up and cast in a 4-foot aluminum hatch ourselves. We'll pour a new pad around it and set it all in place. We will also help arrange with coordinating with the winning contractor. We'll arrange for the bypass pumping. And in that photo are 4 large bypass pumps that we actually called out in an emergency situation last fiscal year when somehow somebody managed to get a blanket into our sewer system. So somebody got a blanket into the sewer. It did get sucked into one of the inlets of one of the 2 pumps, completely disabling it, while the other pump was the only one running and it was starting to overheat. So just that overheating process bought us some time, but it's not a sustainable situation, and we would have had a sewer overflow in the very near future. So we did bypass pumping, draw out all the wet well sewage and get the blanket out of there and make sure everything's clean and working again. But doing this on an emergency basis is very expensive. It did cost order of magnitude $100,000. We did avoid a spill, which costs on an order of magnitude near $1 million the last time it happened. Staff will also be going in there once the bypass is in place and the wet well is pumped down. We will cast a new slope floor on the bottom. We are preparing the design plans for a consultant to come install the new submersible pumps on a rail system. And the rail system allows us to clamp them to walls and slide them up and down for servicing instead of having to go below the sewage level and unbolt the flange connections, which you can imagine is not a pleasant thing to do. We will do some diversion piping within the well so that sewage comes in and doesn't just splash all over the place. We will improve the telemetry and controls, so we'll have a lot more data off of those new pumps and the ability to control things more. And we will reconfigure some of the dry well plumbing. We'll take the impellers out of the existing pumps, which are a poor design for this application, and flow through them to do minimal work and keep them in place. They could actually have the impeller put back in and be turned on in an extreme emergency situation. But the new pumps, being submersible, are always self-primed, which is a large problem of the design we have today. So that's the sewer lift station plans that are coming. We can go to slide 15. And the grand finale, what everyone wants in this city is new streets. So this last part of my presentation is our next paving project. And so I'm going through the steps of how we arrived to what this project really is. So staff, mostly our engineering staff, has identified $5.7 million this year available for the paving project. It does have some money rolled over from last year, some multi-year piling up of grants that we've been saving to do a larger project. And it includes one brand new grant, recycled rubber from Cal Recycle. It's the last one on the table on the right, $250,000. So that's a new secured grant to put in crumb rubber into the asphalt. I was going to do that anyway, just because it provides a much smoother surface, a better look, and provides some flexibility, which I think will reduce cracking over time. But so we've done quite an impressive job of securing 5.7 million, where historically for the last decade, our average has been around 2 million, and the decade before that, 1 million, which was very deficient and why we have so many bad streets. So we have identified and secured a lot more funding. Separate from that, historically, we've on almost all of our projects, we've fully removed the street, dug out all the base material, rejuvenated it with cement treated base, put it all back, and done processes that are very expensive. They are the highest quality processes available, other than putting concrete streets, which last longer but are a bit noisier and people don't seem to like them as much for at least in residential areas, but far more expensive. So now we've been looking into much more cost-effective ways where we've found more money. How do we stretch it even further by doing more cost-effective ways? You saw last year we successfully applied an ARAM treatment and very cost affordable to get 12 miles done. This year, we are going to be grinding the gutters down 4 inches and feathering that out to 0 at all the streets, and then paving 2 lifts for a total of 4 new inches of rubber asphalt over the entire section. So what we're doing is using our crumbling streets as a new layer of base material. They'll have the base under them, and then the street that is crumbling will be treated as even additional base. So the street section is even thicker, even though the bottom of it is pretty fractured. So these are going after the worst streets, and the bids came in right at the engineer's estimate. We actually estimated 5.2 million. The bids came in at 5.2 million. The additional money to 5.7 is some contingency funds, which we always want in place for the unknowns that happen. There is an allowance item in there for dig outs where the base is really fully failed and paving over it will likely cause a shorter lifespan and failing. So we can dig them out and do the more expensive processes in very select locations. So staff is also going to do a lot of preparatory work along Las Tunas. So in this next project, we've included Las Tunas. That already is 1.5 miles of one of our poor condition streets. But in-house staff will do pothole repairs, crack sealing, and we're putting in the utility trenches, which I described earlier. And ultimately, staff will have put together the design plans, have put it out to bid, have awarded it. And when it happens, we'll administer the construction contract and we'll do all the inspection and quality control for the project. So next slide, slide 16. So now we've identified how much funds we have and the costs. So this slide now analyzes the costs of the different possible treatments, what we can do with our money. So the greens are the ones were kind of the final candidates for consideration. And ultimately, we're doing the last one, 4-inch ARHM is asphalt rubberized hot mix with a 7-foot edge grind from 4 inches to 0. The reason we went this way is the green in the middle was ARAM, like we did, but with a thin layer of rubber asphalt over it. So it's got an interlayer of ARAM, but ultimately that process results in a 2-inch section, which has a simulated strength of around 4 inches. But we felt like going for the real 4 inches is probably better for these worst condition streets, because ARAM doesn't really span large gaps, and we're going after our worst condition streets, which have degraded in some cases to near gravel. So we've selected the process, and now we can go to the next slide, 17. And then I made this massive table of the streets that are our worst condition streets. And what we've done is I've made it so we can select the streets by turning it on and off. The first column where it says add on the top left, and then how is the next column. By 1 and 0, it picks the different treatments that I put in there. So all the green streets are the adds to the project with the 4 inches of hot rubber mix over the top. And so what this does is it automatically tallies up the quantities we're getting done. And towards the middle of this table, it adds up the costs. And so I can turn on streets on and off and change processes from one to the other. And it adjusts the total project costs until we have exhausted how much funds we have. And then on the right, some of that is automated as well. And it does break down other things that are lump sum, like mobilization, and we do have to adjust traffic loops and manholes and striping, other things we just have to do. So this is the process of how we determined what streets, and a bit of it is where they are, and there's a desire to cluster, and there's a desire to hit small streets that are pretty affordable, short streets that have just been, for some reason or another, not done, where their surrounding streets are all done. So, and then the blue streets on there, we awarded as bid alternates. So if the bids came in low, or we get far enough in this project and there are sufficient funds left, we now have competitive bid pricing to apply to additional streets. So some of those blues may be done, not all of them. The contingency just isn't that big. So we'll go to slide 18. And this slide is the results of where we fell. So this, all these yellow lines on the map on the right is the scope of this paving project. All of those have very low pavement indexes. I think around 31, 32 was the highest out of a scale of 100. Most of them are below 20 and some are below 10. So we will use our in-house staff again to spray weeds and grind cracks and fill potholes, do some skin patching. I've already discussed the project will grind down at the gutters and pave 2 layers for a total of 4 inches of rubber asphalt. And then the project will come back and stripe lines and raise manholes and do paint markings. So we can go to slide 19. So what this project will ultimately do, we're hoping, is improve our PCI. We did a PCI study with a consultant in 2018, and I did a presentation on that a while ago. We, in 2020, took the projects we've done since that study and upgraded their PCIs. So you can see the middle slide has a little bit more green than the left slide. The color scheme of this is the red is our worst streets. The orange is pretty bad. The yellow, which is hard to see and there's not that many, is the medium. Light green is a pretty good street and dark green is a very good street. And then you see 2021 PCI, and I've taken the current project and scored them higher, made them green, because they really are new streets over the old crumbling streets. And we've actually contracted this year with LA County. It's a service they offer, just like private consultants do. And they've already done the survey. They have our data for this project. We're working with them right now. So the research has been done. We do have a study that's valid for last fiscal year, but we are considering what's happening with this project, and we're considering this project in the end result. I do think our PCI, I'm hoping from 2018 to 21, will jump more than 10 points. I think that is quite a game changer in the city of pretty poor streets. Del Mar is funded. We have money for that. It's waiting for a lot of utility work that's been delayed for that hotel construction, but Del Mar should be improved also, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year. Valley is moving forward with design of all those intersections, and those intersections we're hoping should cover funding 200 feet in every direction from those intersections for new paving. So at each intersection, we get 500 feet done, or 1,500 feet total. So that project will take care of some of Valley's problem. Valley is also a very poor condition street. And then we're pursuing grants for additional paving on Valley as well to see what we can get funded. Go to slide 20. That's the end. So I can take questions and comments, but quickly going through these pictures, the bottom left is the new submersible sewer pumps. We bought 2 and a spare. So those are what will be lowered into the wet well below the sewage and pump out. The top left is one of our staff painting window louvers at the police department. The next one is paving the carport underneath, putting a new layer of asphalt under there because it was crumbling. Then we have a picture of the ARAM truck that spreads gravel over the hot rubber. Then we have a picture of staff restoring the sign at Roosevelt Park because it's one of the many things Public Works does that pretty much goes unnoticed. You go out to the park and it looks nice, but you don't appreciate how much really work it takes to keep it nice. And that sign was broken and faded. And so they put it all back together. They'll change rotten wood, they'll repaint it, put it all back up on new posts because the posts are rotten too. And that's just a whole bunch of things Public Works has done and plans to do. So I'll take your questions and comments.
Thank you, Greg. Really appreciate your hard work, and also this is truly an amazing report. So does any council member have factual questions to clarify the report? I don't see anyone, but I do. I have several. So first one is, I remember from the capital improvement project, which shows like 12.5 million for street paving, but how come it's reduced to 5.7 million?
I'm not familiar with a 12 million number for paving. Unless we sometimes look at multi-years. In the capital budget, we add several years together. I don't know if that's what you've seen.
Maybe that's what it shows, the 12.5 million.
Yeah, this is already an unusually large amount at 5.7 million, and one of them is the SB1 grant. This reflects 3 years of that grant savings.
Right.
So this is larger than usual, but it is all grants available.
So it's good. It's good that we move forward with our street paving, because it's been neglected for so many years. But there's another big funding that's from the infrastructure bill, and 1.3 trillion, and California is going to receive 920 millions. And I saw several cities already apply, maybe 200 cities already got the grants. And I'm just thinking, maybe we can group together for those CPI lower than 40 and say, hey, we need $10 million from this infrastructure bill. So that's something I don't know if you think we could do that, because there's money available, especially for broken streets.
We've received, I believe we've received emails from you, but we get emails on the various grant programs out there. Sometimes they're difficult to apply for or we don't qualify, but we'll look into that one some more.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because this is very new, and a lot of cities already jump on this. And yeah, and one more is even newer. It's a $6 billion, and they just passed it. The state senate just passed this 5 days ago, and this is for broadband. And there will be more fundings, as a matter of fact. So, do you have any plan for cities that we're going to do something for our faster internet connections?
Yes, there's a lot of options. I think we're taking step one right now by getting fiber in the ground. And Metro is funding essentially fiber for traffic purposes. But what we're actually designing and constructing is fiber capacity beyond traffic. So we are putting in a 4-inch conduit, and in that conduit, we're going to pull 4 interducts, 4 1-inch conduits. So essentially, we're getting 4 dedicated conduits along the entire corridors. And in addition to that, we're going to pull more strands than we need for our traffic signals. And so we will have spare capacity for broadband. We will have the ability, when we figure it all out, to lease conduit space to the telecom industry or possibly lease dark fiber space to the telecom industry. Our intention is to grow the system as much as we can. Right now, we're trying to start with a redundant loop on Del Mar, San Gabriel, Valley, Las Tunas, and Mission. We will hope to do short extensions to reach a lot of our city facilities. And we've already met with one telecom consultant, but there's many in figuring out a real broad broadband telecommunication plan for the city. We may ultimately put out an RFP and select a consultant to help us develop a citywide broadband scheme. And they will know the industry and what rates and what's worth doing and what costs to avoid. And there's many companies out there in that industry. So we were approached by one and met with one, but we're thinking in the near future to solicit invitations to others to work with us.
Great, thank you. So I think we can use some of the American Rescue Plan funding, for broadband also. But again, this is a lot of future grants, and it's coming to many cities, including our city and many rural cities that they need internet connection. So this time is the public comments on the item is now closed. Chief City Clerk, please read any comments received.
Thank you, Mayor. No comment for this item.
Okay, thank you. So next one is for council deliberation and discussion. So any city council want to start?
I think the city manager has been wanting to say something there.
Oh, okay. Yes, city manager, go ahead.
Thank you, Councilwoman Menchaca and Mayor Liao. I just wanted to answer your very first question that you asked Greg about the $12 million CIP. You're correct that we do have a $12 million CIP project, but that is a roll-up of all of our street improvement projects. So that includes the intersection projects that Greg talked about in his presentation, like the Broadway Walnut Grove project, the Valley and the Valley and San Gabriel. All of those are under that same 12.5 million. So of that, 5.7 million is paving, and the remaining $5 million or so is for those other projects.
Okay, great. Yeah, now it explains that. Why I always think, oh, well, there was $12 million to fix the streets. But anyway, this is a good. So go ahead. I think Councilwoman or Councilmember Pooh, you want to go ahead?
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Greg, for the very detailed presentation. And it's a lot of really excellent and wonderful news. And it shows how much hard work you and the Public Works Department has put into improving the infrastructure here. I had one small follow-up question from conversation we've had in the past, which was the dedicated left turn signal on northbound Del Mar onto westbound Las Tunas. Do you have any update about that?
The honest answer is no, I don't.
Okay, I know. I mean, among all the amazing projects that you've got going on, I just was curious about that since you talked about all those intersections on Valley Boulevard, which looks like these are going to be huge improvements in terms of the traffic flow, and it's amazing how much congestion can be relieved if they're just there's just a better design. So thanks so much for that. The only other question I really had is like in these asphalt rubber hot mix and asphalt rubberized the other mix, I've gotten some questions as to where does the rubber come from, and I was wondering if you know more about that and the process by which the asphalt rubberized mix is made.
Yes, the vast majority of it comes from worn out car and truck tires. So mostly from tire changing places, even the city itself, we gather up all our worn out tires. And every time we have over 100 tires, we call a vendor to come pick them up. We get a much cheaper rate of disposal when we have over 100. And they will shred them out, pull out the steel banding within and turn it into crumbs. Essentially, it's crumbs just like the safety surfacing used at a lot of playgrounds. That's also car tires. I have heard that sometimes it comes from the waste rubber from punching like tennis balls and then the soles of sneakers. But the vast majority is from car tires.
That's great. I mean, I really that's what I think we maybe touched upon it before, but I think that's just fantastic that we can upcycle these waste materials into something that's useful, and then I assume that it lowers the cost also of the materials we need to use for these paving projects. Is that also the net end of another net end effect of using this type of material and this that type of process?
Actually, no.
No. Okay.
To purchase crumb rubber asphalt costs more than plain asphalt.
Okay.
Probably because of the process of shredding it and getting it in there. It is subsidized, and because it is reusing a waste material, old tires, that's why Cal Recycle supports it. So we got a $250,000 grant to use rubber. That brings the cost down, so they're pretty comparable. But the overall, it does cost more. Now, if you consider life cycle, it may be better because the rubber adds a flexible binder to the asphalt and aggregate, and it can deform and it can resist cracking from just the brittle nature of plain asphalt. So I'm hoping in using rubber, it'll actually last a bit longer. I already know for a fact it provides a smoother driving surface, so it is quieter.
Okay, and is Cal Recycle the only agency that offers this subsidization that you're referring to, or are there other programs? And I assume that's, these are state programs.
I believe Cal Recycle is the only one.
And with respect to that, now that the weather is also extremely hot and so forth, I guess I'm just curious as to, sort of the stress testing of this material and whether it's, how it performs under these more extreme conditions, whether it be cold or hot and so forth, as compared to regular asphalt. Can you just educate a little bit about that, and whether it would seem, as you mentioned, that a more flexible material might actually be better, and as you say, endure for a little bit longer, rather than a material that's harder, and therefore when it contracts and expands due to the weather might have more, as you say, brittleness to it. But I guess that's one I'm curious to learn about.
Okay. I will say that hot rubber asphalt is not an experimental thing. I did hot rubber projects in Santa Monica 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. It's all they do for their top wearing level, to the point where the residents, I've had residents call and request and demand it because it's quieter. So it's a little surprising how much residents know. But so it is a bit more expensive, but Santa Monica is a very well-funded city, and that's all they use. So it's not a new thing. We're not experimenting with this one. As far as behaving in hot and cold, it behaves extremely similar. It is a bit soft, and what you'll notice just driving, not so much in San Gabriel, but I think we've all been to very busy commercial intersections where cars are just constantly braking and accelerating really hard, and you can actually wear ruts into the road and sort of shove the asphalt to the sides. It can behave more like that at a major commercial intersection, but that's really under extreme traffic loading, quite often with truck traffic. I think it is an appropriate use within San Gabriel, and I'm not concerned about its behavior in hot and cold. It's very similar. It is a bit softer because of the rubber, and it can shove a bit more because of the rubber, but it should perform very well for us.
Great. Thanks again. And yeah, I think it's exciting to, by the end of the fiscal year or close to it, but to see, all these streets. And I also want to say, I appreciate you, paying attention to some of our worst streets, the, sort of like priority areas in the northwest of the city and the sort of the central east of the city, across from the, well, not directly across from the police station, but a little bit further south of that. I guess I would say across Del Mar from the village. It looks, it's gonna make a world of difference. So thanks again. I appreciate all the efforts here.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Menchaca, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, Greg, I just wanted to say that we do appreciate you and your team. It's amazing. This is why I like having these presentations, because it showcases all the wonderful work you're doing. I know I consider your group the Jacks and the Jackies of all trade. You do everything. And if you can't do it, you seem to figure it out. And so you just are a great leader, and you just have such a great team. So I just want to say publicly thank you for everything that you do. This is a great, very comprehensive presentation. It shows how many times you've brought things in-house and how you're just very conscientious about the price, about the studies, the analysis that is being done in-house, the grants that you're searching for. So again, I just thank you for that. And I think we can have these presentations on a regular basis. Again, it just lets people know the great work that you are doing. I know it's not a glamorous job in public works, but so valuable. And it's one of the things that surveys after surveys show, that people are very interested in our infrastructure. So I was just going to say, it's so comprehensive, the presentation, but I would like to see maybe recaps that could be done maybe through our social media or some of our city beats, something that's simple that people could understand. For example, just the amount of miles that are being done. I think that's very important. I know that in the past you've shared that there are tools that our residents have access to. So they want to know, my street, like we had a couple people today talk about Girona, finding, that residents could go into this system that you have, I think the GIS system, and they can see when their street is planned to be repaved. I think that would be very helpful if that could be shared in our city beat, our grapevine, our social media, but kind of recapping it, because the PCI you mentioned this evening too, those are really important, but maybe do it in small pieces so people could absorb it better. I know one of the interesting facts that most people don't realize is the amount of traffic that is taking place. I just was reading through the booklet that was made available by Economic Development Department, and it has traffic counts. And I'm just going to read it because it's still shocking every time I see it. But it addresses major streets, and on a daily basis, San Gabriel Boulevard has 38,800 cars. Del Mar Avenue, 27,300. Las Tunas Drive, 30,000. And Valley Boulevard, 32,500 per day. And your team is making sure that the traffic signals are working, the streets are paved. Again, it's valuable work that's being done that benefits not only our residents, but everyone that passes through San Gabriel. So thank you for that. Let's see, I had a couple things here. The PCI, the progress, that would be helpful to also promote and share. And when you do get that report, the updated report, please pass that along to us so we can see the progress, because our PCIs were quite low. And I know they have been getting better, but it would be fascinating to see this next report, where we're at. On Measure W, I'm going to have to ask this because, for me, it's very valuable. The Mission Playhouse, that parking lot, especially during this pandemic, became a lifeline. We did COVID testing there. We did the vaccines. We did the food distributions, which we were continuing to do. And I was wondering, do you know if Measure W is flexible enough that we can pave the parking lot? Is that possible?
The guidelines or the intent of Measure W is to improve stormwater quality and remove pollutants flowing to the waters of America. Paving the parking lot as just a simple project, no, they won't allow that. We initially started a concept of taking out a little bit of the parking lot and putting pavered parking and draw some stormwater flow from the parking lot into an infiltration area, and that would qualify. But it is expensive. It does a small area of the parking lot. It doesn't even address 10% of the bad paving. And we were also approached by potential development concepts where if we put a lot of money into that parking lot and then tore it all out for future development, it would have been wasted. So we kind of held off even on the little strip of parking stalls with permeable pavers. If I could go back and address a little bit more of your other comments.
Well, I had one more thing before you address my other comments. What about the American Rescue Plan? Since we use that parking lot to provide those services during the pandemic, do you know if we can use some monies? I don't know what the cost is. I mean, that was actually one of my questions too. Do you know how much it would cost to repave, especially using these new treatments? I'm going back to the American Rescue Plan. There's any monies we could use, because we're also using the Mission Playhouse. I mean, we have filming contracts now. It just seems it's become a real epicenter, and it's just that parking lot that it just needs such renovation. Do you know if we can use?
Yeah, no, I don't have a number at this time. It would be pretty significant. I imagine past $100,000, but the rules for the CARE funding, I don't know them very well. I'm going to guess no, because for national infrastructure, a parking lot is kind of pretty low on the list of what's important to governments and spurring business and all that. So I'm going to guess it probably does not qualify, but we can research that.
I mean, again, we used it so much during the pandemic, and we continue to use it actually. But go ahead and address my other comments.
Okay. In presenting information in smaller bite-sized amounts, throughout the entire pandemic, the 411 with the Chief program continued. It became virtual, but every month I gave snippets out to the public. Whoever wanted to watch 411 with the Chief got an update on what was happening with Public Works that month. And even in a few of those, I think I've done kind of presentations or demonstrations where I would go to our GIS, show how to go to go to the GIS layer that we have within Public Works, how to turn layers on and off and get information. So I did do some of that. You mentioned more venues to get the message out, but it never really stopped. And then we do, to a very small audience, we do the weekly updates to council, so you always see what's going on. And then separate from that, I know this is a Public Works presentation, but I do completely agree that Public Works has very good, competent staff. They really care about their work and they take pride in the city. But beyond that, San Gabriel all around is full of good staff, and Public Works gets a lot of support from HR, from finance to make things happen, from HR to getting staff. And we work closely with community development and police and fire on their projects. There's just so much cooperation all around. The city clerk helps us out. It's just, I do want to say, citywide thank you. This really is a city. It's a very small staffed city, so we have to be effective and efficient in everything we do, and it really is a trend all around San Gabriel. So
You're very humble, Greg. Very humble.
I'm going to end with our seeming informal adopted motto, happy to be here.
Well, you're not our first Public Works director, so we've gone through our share, and I have to tell you, you've been pretty amazing, and I've heard that from other directors too. So I really want to thank you for your leadership there. Let me just go back to your comment about the 411 with the chief. It's called for 411 for the chief, and people are there to watch the chief. You're always in the tail end, and I'm not sure if you really have their attention. I'm just saying that if you can do it in bite size over time through a different forum, whether it's social media or the city beat or the every Wednesday, well, that is the city beat, but just smaller bite size, even the GIS would be helpful too, just giving them the website. There are some people out there who could probably manage through that GIS system. I believe it's a GIS. Am I saying that correctly? Yeah.
Correct, yes.
Just snippets here and there. And I know you've done I've watched you, but again, it's a little longer, your moments of fame there. It's just a suggestion, because I think, again, it's kind of a well-kept secret of the great work that is being done, but you do have to put in smaller pieces, because it is a little more complicated, your area, whether it's sewers or the streets. But the streets in particular has been a long-standing thorn for this city, because the streets have been neglected for so many years. And frankly, since you've been here for the last 3-4 years now, there is a dramatic increase in the quality, and I get lots of thank yous, and we should be getting those thank yous actually directly, but I just think it needs to be promoted better. And so if there's a way to do it, please do. I know you're extremely humble, and I know everyone is supporting you, but I would like to see more of it, because it is, your department is one that is frequently talked about. And I just don't think there's enough information in manageable size that it has been provided to the residents. I know residents email me, you're very quick in providing great responses, but I'm just thinking there should be better ways of doing this. And it's just a suggestion. But go ahead, Greg. You had some other comments you wanted to make, or are you done?
No, I'm done. I've said enough.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not done yet, Mayor. Wait a second.
We're not done?
No, I'm not. Wanted to ask the city manager, do you have any ideas, or do you have any understanding about whether it's the American Rescue Plan or some other source of revenue for our parking lot that we could use?
Along with Greg, I'm a bit skeptical whether we could use American Rescue Plan funds. We can use some of the revenue replacement if we wanted to, but that would come from our fund balance. But I do have one idea. And we shouldn't probably talk about it too much because we'll get too far off agenda. But one of my thoughts is we have applied for the Save Our Screens grant. We don't have that money put into our budget. So if somehow we're successful in receiving that for the lost revenue from the Mission Playhouse, we could bring an agenda item back when we bring that money into the budget to use that for a one-time cost, such as paving the parking lot. So that's one idea I have as we're talking about ways of brainstorming ways.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, I'm done, Mayor.
All right. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Menchaca. Any others? I see Vice Mayor King.
It's me? Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. The great great report. It's yeah. I echo the Councilman Fu, Councilman Menchaca. Yeah. It's a great job for the last year and this year also especially for public work for our street paving. So the question is it Greg, is there any like another long-term plan for our street paving, or when if we like take off all the like red line, so then how can we keep the maintenance up for our street? Like did you have any idea maybe for future 5 years?
I don't have a specific plan. I think we have a very strong trend to consider much more affordable processes to extend the life of the streets. I don't even know exactly what next year's paving program will be. Will we take our grant money and go after the worst streets again? Because this project is going to make a huge dent. It's not going to solve our problems. There's still going to be some bad streets left. There's still going to be medium streets that are degrading fairly quickly if they're left alone. So we're applying much more cost-effective treatments to extend the life of streets and even restore the worst ones. So we'll do the same thing next year. We'll start with the grants. We'll scrounge up as much money as we can figure out how to get. And then we may do another project preserving or extending the life of medium streets for a very cost-effective fee, or we may go after a bunch of the worst streets again with a similar process we're doing this year. I really kind of haven't made up my mind on which way we're going to go next year. Everything is done with the big picture in mind. We're strategizing the big picture. We do need to address our worst streets. Councilmember Poo's brought that to my attention many times as a desire. We need to address the worst ones, but at the same time, we need to address the medium ones before they become the worst ones, and that's much cheaper to do. So it actually shows no progress to the worst streets when we preserve the medium ones, but it's the only way we're going to get ahead of this problem. So I don't know what way next year will go, but over the next 2 years, I imagine we'll do one project of each. We'll do a bad street project and a medium preservation project. Another thing that's bad throughout the city, and luckily we don't have too many, as you know, is our alleys. Our alleys tend to be pretty beat up too. They're lightly trafficked, but they're in bad shape. So I would like to eventually sneak alleys into one of these projects as well.
Yeah. So actually, I hope like you do the last year and this year and fix all the best street and prevent the like median the street and some like routine maintenance to keep our street. I just want direct talk. I don't want to hear about it. People told me that the 40 or 50 years their street didn't fix it, you know. So that's I just bring that this voice. So I hope that great. I know you do a good job, and I also hope maybe if you have plan, maybe also how much like future our budget, like a grant or budget, whatever the financial resource you maybe can bring on the table so we can discuss for the future. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor. Any others? Okay, well, if not, I'll start. I want to thank you, because I've been working on this stormwater project for the past 8 years. I couldn't go anywhere, but all of a sudden you got this design that showed up a week ago, and I really appreciate it because I did talk to the original water control board, and I think I did a good job to impress them that we are actually going to do something for our stormwater capture at the Victor Loop Park. Well, and the thing is, we already got 300,000 for this, but then what do you have any plan to get the grants, for $6 million to build this project? Do you have any idea?
Sure. We are going to submit an application for this project by the July 31st deadline of this year. So we have 10 days to submit it. Our consultant that was hired by Measure W money, they're working on the application for us. We're getting letters of support. They've already done a tentative score, and our project score is very high in their scoring system for awarding projects. One factor that I've marketed to them several times is that this project is visually interesting. It's not just taking water out, putting it in a tank and leaching it into the ground. It actually is pumping it into a creek and a bioswale, and you will see flowing water and you will see marshy landscape. It's a great opportunity to put educational signage out there for our schools and visitors. So there's a good education component. It's going to enhance the park features for public health benefit. And it does serve the original intent of getting water into the ground and not flowing out. So I've marketed that to the various groups several times already. I think we have a very good chance with this project, but we're meeting this deadline of July 31st, and it's an annual program. So quite often when you don't get selected, you apply again the second year, and you actually have a better chance of winning the second year.
Right. So I hope we get it this year because, I talked to St. Gabriel Valley COG, and they want to support this project. And as a matter of fact, I will talk to the water board chairman, Chairman Edie, and I think he will, support this, and whatever help that we need, we can make it happen. And again, I think this is, well, it's not easy. A lot of cities don't even want to get involved with water projects. I think we can build this one not just to capture the toxic chemicals from the water, but also beautify the local park. Just like the one we're asking from Prop 68, that $8.5 million for Smith's Park, and I want to do the same thing applaud to our community service director, Perez. Did such a good job, and he is applying for, well, this is round 4, so hopefully we can get that. Today we already sent letters to Governor Newsom, to Congresswoman Judy Chu, Assembly Member Ed Chow, and Senator Susan Rubio for supporting this, project. So hopefully, I think we have a strong chance to get that $8.5 million to rebuild the swimming pool and expand the tennis court and all that. So I think this is a good thing. This is about time that would put the St. Gabriel, it was compare with other cities. I think it would be very quiet, very humble, but I think this is the time we can ask for funding. And I want to help, because I'm on this California cities transportation policy committee. So we get to know the firsthand for funding. So I think, if you allow me to help you to get more money, I think we can all work together. Another thing is, you mentioned about the safe route to school. Safe routes to school. We did receive small funding from federal before, but I think we do need a large amount of money to improve the roadway, because there's no sidewalk. So how can you have a safe route to school? The kids coming from the east of the hotel, and they have to go to school at the Roosevelt, and there's no sidewalks. So I think it's something that we could call for a project, maybe work with the county to see if we can build the whole section, from Walnut Grove to Muscatel. That's a long section of the streets that without sidewalks right now. So, but anyway, I think that's something that we can work on in the future. But anyway, I appreciate your hard work. And again, let's all work together and we can achieve home water project and the renovation of the police park. And just information only for newly elected city council, the vice mayor. Stormwater is very important because when I got elected, they told me, if we don't do anything, the city will be penalized for any toxic chemical, and it's a 3,000 a day. Okay, and they can find us 32 chemicals, and if they found it in our stormwater, and that's 96,000 a day. So I thought, oh my goodness, I got to do something about this. And so anyway, and a lot of cities just think, well, this is unreasonable, this unfunded mandate, blah, blah, blah. But I think if St. Gabriel can do it, other cities can do it. So thank you, Greg. Yeah, because you make my 8 years dream come true. Okay, so thank you again. Well, next item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no additional public comment.
Okay, so the public comment is closed, and so yeah, that's the end. This item. Do we need to do anything? Just for information only. So
No, Mayor Leo, this is informational only.
Yeah. So next item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no more public comment for this evening.
All right, no public comments. Now, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Leo. I just have one item to report out tonight. We will not have our August 3rd city council meeting because of traditionally we celebrate National Night Out that night. So I invite everybody to tune in at 5 p.m. to our YouTube channel of the city's YouTube channel, and we will be doing a virtual presentation similar to what we did last year. And I hope that the community and the council come out to see that presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council comments and conference meeting reports. Anyone? See, so member Prue, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow I'll be participating as first vice president of the League of California Cities API caucus on a Zoom for the sort of the health disparities impacting the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander population. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm looking forward to the flea market on Saturday and other events in the next couple of weeks or so. And of course, I assume will staff be providing some information about the National Night Out and what the program will be?
We will, yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Any others? City council member have reports? Yes. Oh, Vice Mayor Dean, go ahead.
Okay, I have chance to attend the last Saturday morning the event. It's a pretty good event. I think turnout. It's good. Also have the like resident have a lot of the comments, question for our, especially for our POA, PMA, and the Fire Association, the Fire Management Association. They attend a meeting too. It's a very good communication with the resident and the police and the fire. Okay, and it's a really good information exchange. I just want to share with the community. I think that's pretty good for our we call a transparency and community involvement. I encourage you the more people, if you really want more this kind of community event. So I think it's this time it's called a George Herrero. Maybe you can contact him, or you can do by yourself too. You know, it's this kind of event. I really appreciate our resident really care our community, care our city. Yeah, that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I see raised hand by Councilwoman Menchaca.
Thank you. I wanted to just share a couple things. I also wanted to encourage everyone to go to the flea market. I think it's going to be a huge success. It's going to be at the parking lot, Playhouse parking lot. So another way to showcase our parking lot, I guess. It'll be from 9 to 3 p.m. If it's successful, we're hoping that this could be a quarterly event. So please show up. Please support all those local vendors. Second item is the economic development team has created this wonderful guide. It's a San Gabriel restaurant guide. It's on the website. I believe it's also been promoted in some other social media. But it showcased all, not all, but those who granted permission. It's a way to promote our local restaurants, and they have a table of contents, and it lists the restaurants by the type of food that they serve, whether it's Mexican or Asian fusion or boba or Thai, Korean. It's just a real nice way of having it at your disposal. If you want a certain type of food, it's there. And they are still encouraging other restaurants to please give permission to be included in this guide. But it's, again, free, no cost marketing opportunity for our local restaurants. We're also, just a reminder to continue to attend the concerts and the movies that are taking place. It's exciting that there's still the ability, even within the health guidelines, to have these type of events, and it's done by our very own community services. They also have Art in the Park for different age groups. Lastly, I wanted to just to kind of highlight, and hopefully I do this correctly, I have the dates right, Captain Nakamura, but we're finally going to have an in-person 411 with the chief, and I believe it's starting in August 10th. And so the chief will be back in council chamber from 6 to 7:30, and it's going to be, hopefully, if the guidelines permit it, it's going to be in person. So please show up and ask your questions. I know the chief is ready and his team is ready to ask any questions. You don't have to give them any softballs. You can give them some really good questions and ask about public safety. And then lastly, there was a report that was published by the chief and his team. It's called the 21st Century Policing Report. And it talks about all the wonderful things that are being done by our police department. It offers recommendations on how police agencies can promote effective crime reduction and better connect with communities while promoting officer wellness and safety. It is a little long, but it's well worth the read. And you can tell just a lot of effort has been put into this report. It's 16 pages long. There's lots of pictures, but Captain Nakamura, I don't know if there's anything else you would like to say. I'm probably not giving it justice, but you can go onto the police website to find it. Is there anything else I should say about this report, Captain? I know a lot of effort. I see your picture in it, so I know you're probably one of the co-authors here.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail. It's just a snapshot of what we've done over the last 5 years under the direction of Chief Harris. There's definitely more to come, but we don't want to make this into a dissertation either. So we just want to make a snapshot, and another one will be coming out probably within the next 2 years.
Okay. Thank you, Captain. And that was all for me, Mayor.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, I don't see anyone. So I have attended a meeting at the, well, it's a restaurant in Monterey Park. And this organization is called the Los Angeles Chinese American Sheriff Advisory Committee, and it's founded maybe 22 years ago. But now I think it's a big concern for API communities in San Gabriel Valley in general. So we want to work with the county sheriff department and to make sure all the cities are safe. And there are about 8 city mayors attend this meeting, and for future, cooperation with the sheriff department and our police department. And I did request maybe our police department can appoint someone as a liaison person. But so far, they haven't come up with a real answer. And so we will just, have to work step by step, because for past several years, this organization was not active at all. But now they think it's very important that we have this type of organization help our community. So that's it. Thank you so much, and appreciate again for a very long meeting, 9:25 p.m. So any motion to adjourn the meeting? Anyone? Okay, I see.
If you need one.
Well, I'll second it. So we'll adjourn the meeting till the next regular city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 17, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night.